Today, on this episode of APUSH Runs History, we will explore the common misconception that all women were guaranteed the right to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment. While we look into this misconception, we hope to find why it is that we are taught in school that the 19th Amendment did guarantee the right to vote to all women, and why it is that we don't learn about women suffragists who are not either Susan B. Anthony or Elizabeth Cady Stanton. We have been taught since an early age that with the passage of the 19th Amendment, all women were guaranteed the right to vote, but this is only partially true. While the amendment did guarantee the legal enfranchisement of all women, only white women gained the true ability to vote, while African American, Asian American, and Native American women still did not have the true right to vote. We have also been taught in school that the two women that contributed the most to women gaining the right to vote are Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, but this is not true. In fact, Susan B. Anthony openly argued against black men and women gaining the right to vote in order to further her own cause. And she even went so far to say, "I will cut off this right arm of mine before I ever work or demand the ballot for the Negro and not the woman." And Stanton wasn't much better. When it was decided that the vote for black men was to supersede the right for women to vote, Elizabeth disagreed so violently that she opposed the passage of the 14th and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution, which formally codified male suffrage. She resented so deeply that the law gave black men, male immigrants, and men of the lower order, as she would put it, had the right to vote, but women were expected to wait. Her rhetoric incorporated such demeaning terms as sambo, and consequently she alienated many of her formerly ardent supporters, such as Frederick Douglass. During the beginning of the women's suffrage movement, black suffragists formed groups much like white women that were dedicated to the sole purpose of gaining the right to vote for women. But even though they were just women trying to gain the right to vote, they were discriminated against within their own movement. Some white suffragists argued that the enfranchisement of women would serve to cancel out the Negro vote, as there would be more white women voters than black men and women voters combined. Black women were also discouraged from even joining or even having their clubs affiliated with the National American Women's Suffrage Association, while others were more blatant with their racist views and called for the enfranchisement of white women only. In addition, some of the white members of the group did not want to be affiliated with black suffragists in public. For example, during the suffrage parade of 1913, organized by Alice Paul's Congressional Union, black women were asked to march in a segregated unit at the back. Even after the 19th Amendment was passed, black women still struggled to gain their right to vote. This is because of the implementation of poll taxes and literacy tests that were put in place by white lawmakers. Black women did not truly gain the right to vote until the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed. Some of the prominent black female suffragists were Mary Church Terrell, Nannie Helen Burroughs, and Mary Ann Shadd Cary. Even before the passage of the 19th Amendment, Asian Americans struggled to get basic rights in America. This was because of legislation like the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, which restricted Asian Americans from entering the country and made sure they were not considered citizens. In the years following the passage of the 19th Amendment, the Supreme Court upheld in 1922 and 1923 that foreign-born Asian Americans could not be naturalized as American citizens, and therefore cannot vote in American elections, regardless of how long they had resided in the country. Only in 1943, with the repeal of the 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act, and in 1952, with the passage of the McCarran-Walters Act, where all Asians, including Asian women, were granted the right to naturalize as citizens, with voting rights as the last nominally accessible by extension. Beginning in 1876, Native Americans were legally ruled non-citizens of the United States, and laws that barred Native Americans from United States citizenship continued to stand for nearly half a century afterwards. In only 1924, 4 years after the passage of the 19th Amendment, were Native men and women recognized as American citizens by birthright with the passage of the Indian Citizenship Act. This act also brought along the right to vote. In conclusion, women won the right to vote in 1920 with the passage of the 19th Amendment, but Native American women didn't gain the right to vote till 4 years later. Asian American women didn't gain the right to vote until 1952, and black women had to wait the longest, as they did not gain the right to vote until 1965. This misconception that all women gained the right to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment has affected our view of history because it has allowed the whitewashing of history and the non-recognition of the struggle that women who were not white had to go through just to obtain the right to vote.